Oh, we're here. We are live, and we're still going, believe it or not. And Joe Rayo on my left, so he's over there. So I have
I'm
to
over.
point to my right, and then
Oh, wait a minute.
I got to point to my right, but you're actually to my left.
Whatever.
So yeah, so if you want to point to me, you got to point opposite. So you go,
I'm still running like a minute behind you, so I can't see. Oh, there we are now.
yes. Well, we're here at 7 o'clock. It's 7:02. And it's February 12th, 2020. I just want to say a couple of things right off the bat. Thank you to Paul Roman for hitting Super Chat tonight. Really appreciate it. And I just want to give a big hello to the ninth graders, very smart honors class group, ninth graders at North Babylon High School today. I ran down there and spent about an hour and a half with them as they're doing the weather portion of their earth science class with Mrs. Luna. And we had a lot of fun. A really bright bunch of students. They asked some great questions, and a few future meteorologists in the bunch, I assure you.
Yes, they will. They will get jobs. We're already past that plateau.
Yes, yeah, but it's good.
And by the way,
It is nice to see. I like working with the high schoolers and the teenagers to see. You see their energy and you see that. They're truly interested, and that helps me out. If you're talking to a group of students that are enjoying you being there, that's a big plus.
you wouldn't have been able to do that like 40 years ago.
Do what?
On this day, you wouldn't have been able to do that.
On Lincoln's birthday, yes, because
Lincoln's
this used to
birthday.
be a holiday. Is it still a New York State holiday? It was up until a few years ago. Were the banks open today? I didn't
I
notice.
I didn't know. But of course now we take Washington and Lincoln and kind of mold them into one big ball and
And all the other presidents, and they just call it President's Day, and then they lop it together with winter break. And when we started out, that wasn't they closed the schools for that week in February in order to save energy during the energy crisis of the mid '70s, if you remember,
yes, I do.
early and mid '70s.
Early in mid 70s.
Yes.
But this weekend is President's Day weekend. I think this is the weekend. If you're a skier, this is the
This
big
is your
week.
big weekend. So the
And
fact that there's going to be a 2 to 4, 3 to 6 inch snowfall, maybe a little bit more in some of the higher peaks, comes pretty well timed here for tonight and for Thursday for upstate New York, north of I-90, and for interior northern New England.
and of course, with the cold weather coming, for places that have a paucity of snow or not much in the way of snow, if they have a snow machine, they'll certainly be able to run them right on through the afternoon and night on Friday and on into Saturday as well. So they'll be able to create at least enough powder out there to make it worth everybody's while.
Dave Schwartz says that banks were open today, but alternate side of the street parking regulations in New York City were canceled, were suspended for the day. And Bill Uber makes the point is that you have to have money in order for a bank for you to use a bank. Well, there is some truth to that, William. You're not bowling tonight, or was it last night was your bowling night? But either way, and I'm going to take you up on that corned beef hash breakfast really soon. I
Oh,
promise.
that
Thank you.
sounds delicious.
Well, whenever I go out to breakfast, I have, which is not really very often, I usually get the same thing, which is either sunny up eggs on a bed of well done corned beef hash and burned to a, I want to hear the fire engines coming at the door crisp, okay, um, home fries. Or I'll get, if I want to vary it a little bit, I'll have poached eggs on well done corned beef hash with burned, as in I want to hear fire engines coming at the door, home fries.
Indeed.
Yeah, I like the home fried potatoes. In my opinion, there are very few foods that taste better when they're well done. I think potatoes are one of them, and pasta is another. I think pasta, when you eat it the second and third day after it's absorbed all the oils from the sauce, is sometimes I think it actually tastes better than the first time around. But that's my never to be humble opinion.
And I was so sad to see. I might be wrong. My wife tried to surprise me a week or two ago with one of my favorite pastas when I was a young boy, which was wagon wheels.
Oh yeah, I remember those.
But that back in the day, Joe, as you are well aware, the wagon wheels were about this big,
Yeah, they
and
rolled in.
the wagon wheels that she got me was
They're like
like
matchbox size. Yeah, I know.
exactly, exactly.
Um,
I don't know if they still make them that large, but anyway,
well,
it's
let's roll on with what's going on tonight, shall we? And we have a little
like
bit of action.
people are probably saying like, why are they talking about this and not talking about the weather?
Cause there
Well,
ain't
why are we
much to
not talking
talk
about the
about.
weather? Because the weather is so boring.
It is. It's just so I don't know. I get you know what's it isn't so much that it's boring to me. It's the fact that you do have stuff going on from the standpoint of snow anyway, and some there's also flash flooding and severe weather, but it's not it's not happening here. This is just another snow event that's happening well north and west of the urban corridor. We do have this narrow band of winter weather advisories from southwest Kansas across northern Missouri, most of northern Illinois, including Chicago, most of northern Indiana, most of northern Ohio, southeastern Michigan, northern Pennsylvania north of Route 80, most of New York State except for us and the Hudson Valley west of the Hudson. And you've got advisories up for much of interior New England from northern Connecticut northward. Flash flood watches up across a large portion of the south and also for the Tennessee and lower Ohio Valley. And the red that you see, those are flash flood warnings. The periwinkle pink color that is showing up uh, in the northern half of Alabama, those are severe thunderstorm watches that are up for northern Alabama, and I think they might have had them up for parts of Tennessee as well. Got the SPC map up here too, Joe. There's a marginal to slight risk, and the radar is showing a pretty solid line of storms that's moving right along here to the east across Mississippi and Alabama. And of course, you've got the rain that is moving up over us and some snow that is falling on the northern fringe of that.
It's kind of interesting that we're not seeing any kind of advisory or warning or watch for the Pacific Northwest for a change. Out there, it's quiet for the moment.
Hey, by the way, I'm looking at SPC's map that I have on the screen, and here's something new because I never noticed this before. But they actually now have a radar on their loop. The radar shows snow rather than just all green. But
Uh huh.
it's showing snow. Well, and according to this, it's at least aloft now in northern New Jersey and northeastern Pennsylvania and moving into southern Connecticut. I'm going to check a few obs in the meantime.
I don't think any of that is really getting down to the ground, though.
Probably not, but let's just for laughs. The 7 o'clock, exactly. The 7 o'clocks aren't in yet, so let's bring them up. Okay. Did you tell all your Facebook friends, by the way, to come on over to watch the live stream tonight? I hope you did.
Yes, I did, and not only did I do that, but it's also on both of my Facebook pages. So, or at least the link to watching us is on both of my Facebook pages. So, um, it's still considering the fact that it's a kind of a bland weather pattern for us. The fact that we've got now at this moment 109 people watching,
It's pretty
all,
cool.
uh, all of you are the hardcore viewers, I
Right.
presume. Yeah.
Exactly. Definitely. Here, thick or thin, winter, spring, summer, or fall. All we have to do is call, and they'll be there. So it's nice. It really is flattering that folks show up here on a daily basis. So there's SPC's mess. Here's the live radar view, and I was just looking at the observations, Joe. Even if it starts off as snow, it's in the upper 30s and low 40s. It's in the upper 30s and low 40s, even up in northern Connecticut and points northward where they have advisories up. So I mean, I don't know how much you're going to be able to put down on the ground. And the radar's got this, there is precip aloft, maybe some light rain being reported in parts of New Jersey and back through Pennsylvania. I didn't see anything in PA as far as snow goes. This was at 6 o'clock, so I may be an hour behind here. The new observations usually don't update until about 7:15, but I'm going to pull up. Let's see what they're doing in Philadelphia. Yeah, those are still 6 o'clock. I'm just looking through PA. Yeah, Joe, light snow at State College with a temperature of 39. What are you going to do with that?
Good luck.
I mean, how sad is that, really? I know.
Oh,
It's
dear.
just so sad that it.
43, 43 right now at Central Park. That's a 7 o'clock observation, and just overcast. Nothing
Right.
happening
So,
at the moment.
bottom line is, if it starts off as snow, who cares? I mean, seriously. Here's on the satellite loop now. Of course, we're waiting for this. This is the last of the series of waves that has been that has come out from the west. So after this one goes by, it looks like we're going to have a break for a little bit with some dry weather over the weekend. And also, this is not going to turn into any kind of major storm. This is actually the fourth wave, because the first wave was the major storm that went through late last week. You had a low on Monday that moved across the Great Lakes and into northern New England, fought with a follow-up wave on the stall front yesterday. Then we had a nice break. We had a decent amount of sunshine here. It was sunny almost until about 2 o'clock this afternoon. So that was wave 3 for yesterday, and this is wave 4 as it moves out to the east. So in reality, the first usually, so not I shouldn't say usually, but a lot of the times when you have a series of waves, oftentimes it's the last one that's the powerhouse. And this is one of those instances where the first one was the powerhouse, and the next 3 were, so-so. This one is okay, but nothing to write home about. It's not going to turn into any kind of big major event. And the once it's done, I think we catch a little dry time, even though we're going to get some cold air behind it.
And it's nice to have just cold and dry, which this is only going to be the third time. I can't even say since the winter began. The winter, of course, officially, unless you're looking at it from the standpoint of meteorological winter beginning on December 21st. But we actually had a spell of cold weather before that, around the 19th of December. That cold spell, by the way, came in the aftermath of that legendary snow squall that came on through New York City, if you
Right.
remember. Then we had the bit of cold air here for the Martin Luther King holiday around the 19th and 20th of January. That also coincided with the last significant snowfall. It was that snow that we had on that Saturday afternoon. And now, here we go. We're finally going to see more cold air. It took long enough, but it's going to be here for Friday and into the start of the weekend. It doesn't even last the whole weekend, for goodness
No, it
sake.
doesn't. It
By
it,
the time
it
we get
really
to
doesn't. How
by the
pathetic
time
is
we get
that?
to by the time we get to Sunday, I mean, on my lower Hudson Valley forecast, and this is of course these are averages for the entire Hudson Valley region. I've got a 31 for a high on Friday, 32 on Saturday, and I jump it to 44 on Sunday, 44 Monday, and then on Tuesday it'll get wet again with some rain and showers, but 49 or even 50 degrees for early next week.
Okay, so let's just do a quick. I got the snow map, and then we're going to interrupt this forecast for a little bit of Briller jeopardy, as Don Pardo would have said. But
Yes.
snow-wise, right, once you start to see the southern edge of where it starts to snow, basically along Route 80 in Pennsylvania and 84 up in the Hudson Valley, where if you look at the street light for a long enough without being blinded, you might wind up seeing a few snowflakes at the very start, and that should be about it. And then I think once you go north of I-90, that's pretty much where you're going to wind up with some accumulating snows. And also from the Catskills, if you go west of the Hudson, west and north through upstate New York, back around Rochester, the forecasting weather service there forecasting 9, Buffalo 8. There's going to be also some lake of backside stuff and lake effect that's going to happen there, so that skews those numbers higher. But up in northeastern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, it looks like a mostly 2 to 4, 3 to 5 inch snowfall out of this. So again, it really isn't much to write home about. And then going back into the Ohio Valley, we're looking at it looks like about the forecasting 5 for Cleveland, 4 for Detroit, back up to 5 for Chicago, 7 for Grand Rapids, Four for Detroit, five for wait. I'm sorry. Let me repeat that. Four for Detroit,
So,
five for Gary, Indiana, four for Chicago, two for Milwaukee, seven for Grand Rapids, and back over through Indiana. It's mostly 3, 4, 5 inch snow amounts going south and west into northern Missouri, and the amounts start to tail off once you get that far to the south. The map is having a little bit of time filling in, so I'm going to just bring the GFS up, and then let me get. Let's do a little bit of Briller Jeopardy. You ready? First, we want
yes.
to correct something. Yesterday, the lowest temperature this winter at Central Park was 16 back on December 19th, and not 19 back on December 16th. So just to make that clear. So, Briller Jeopardy. Uh, these three states have the least snow per winter. Good luck.
These three states,
These three states. Do
the
do
least amount
do
of snow.
do la 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 do do do. Cut it short. Okay. These three states in the United States have the least amount of snow. Mr. Rayo, you say. What say you,
Uh,
Mr. Rayo?
I'll say Florida, Alabama, and Mississippi.
You only got one out of three.
Really?
Yeah, so it's Florida, Louisiana, and Hawaii.
Oh, well.
Okay, now
I was
let's.
thinking in terms of contiguous United States,
Oh
not
no, it's all 50
all
states
50.
for God's sake. Now let's go the other way around, and there's your consolation Jeopardy,
Okay.
consolation Briller Jeopardy. These three states have the most snow, and this is
Uh,
all, by the way, per the National Climactic Center in Asheville, North Carolina. Good luck.
well, we have to put Alaska down as number one, or one of the three. Uh,
Um, Go
uh,
on.
I'll say Washington, Oregon, and Alaska, based upon the Cascade Mountain Range for Washington and Oregon, and Alaska because it's Alaska.
Now, you know what? I would have probably said I would have picked Alaska as one of the three states, but it doesn't even make the top three.
Really?
It doesn't
Oh,
make the top three. Now,
oh,
I would be curious as to what the standard of measure is and how they come up with their numbers. Some states are bigger than others, so how do you measure it? I mean, Wyoming geographically and Alaska's huge, okay, compared to Wyoming, say, which is on the list, um, uh, uh, made the list, and also New York made the list, believe it or not,
oh, you mean because of lake effect? Because of places
because of
that
lake effect. And the third one was Vermont,
wow.
right? I did read that correctly.
Well,
Hang
wait a
on.
minute. And then how does
Yeah, New York,
Hawaii?
Wyoming, and Vermont. I
Oh,
would have
wow.
thought Washington State would have been there with the Cascades. So
Yeah.
I
Now,
don't know. That's according to the National Climactic Center. You'll have
uh,
to argue it with them. It's not me. This is Briller Jeopardy. It's not Cioffi Jeopardy. He's quite. You see how I wash my hands of it? No, but seriously, he said it's data compiled by the National Climactic Center. I'm just asking the question: how do you compare the lake effect stuff that goes on in New York, say, with the the Cascades, where they get
right,
100 inches out of a snowstorm, and there's only a winter weather advisory up for that.
or
So what's that?
even Vermont. What are they in the Green Mountains? Is that what they're
I
basing their?
guess. I guess. Now, the other thing I would say is probably if the lake effect maybe trumps the Cascades, because no, I'm sorry. Let me repeat. So the lake effect maybe
Oh,
and the Cascades cancel each other out. Okay, and the coastal area of New York is actually quite small geographically. So and we get 6 times the amount of snow on our normals that the coast of Washington does. I mean, Seattle only averages about 6 or 7 inches a season, okay, and New York City averages 25 or 30. So maybe our numbers are higher.
It, You could have fooled me, but and of course, a place like Barnes Corners, which is just near Watertown, I think one year they got like some ridiculous figure, like 400 or 500 inches of snow
Hmm.
on lake effect. I mean, you get a certain winter when you get those persistent west or west northwest winds across Lake
And it
Ontario.
goes crazy.
Yeah,
And some
yeah.
places get a couple of 100 inches for the winter. So let's run through the models tonight because, look, folks, we're not going to have really that much, there's no breaking news here in the weather world with regards to what's happening. So our low is moving east and northeast. Low pressure comes up the west side of the Appalachians, kind of makes a center jump from southern Pennsylvania to the Gulf of Maine. We get whatever rain we get this evening and tonight. That severe weather moves across the southern states. Marginal risk for severe weather tomorrow in the southern mid-Atlantic states. And then that front moves out, high pressure moves in. This is going to be very cold air, the coldest air of the winter probably for a lot of spots in the Northeast. And we talked about that yesterday with double digit below zero in upstate New York and New England. And you know what? Like you said, Joe, the high goes out. We start to moderate already on Sunday. Weak cold front comes through Sunday night with maybe a shower. And then Monday looks dry and seasonal or maybe just a little bit above normal. And then next week, it's kind of like wash, rinse, repeat. Another low goes up the west side of the Appalachians. We get another cold front, some more snow for northern New England, some more snow for New Mexico and Texas and North Texas for Tuesday and Wednesday. Again, another example, folks. If it's snowing down there, it's usually not good for up here. And, running through the long range, at least when you look at the surface, um, there's not really too much happening here going out over the next 16 days, as far as I can see. And as usual with the upper pattern, I'm just going to bring up by the way, maps courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com. I don't want to forget Levi Cowan's great website where weather models make their home on a daily basis, and everything gets updated on time, and we appreciate it. I'm looking at the upper air off the 18Z GFS, Joe. I mean, you still have this sort of west-east fire hose with these occasional little connections with whatever comes down out of Canada. Big fire hose pattern sets up from late next week and the following weekend, so that's no good. And then, of course, after that, I guarantee you, as I'm rolling through, yeah, indeed, by the time we get to the last 5 or 6 days of the forecast period, as always, the trough is in the east, the ridge is in the west, and it never gets there. So one one of these days, the long range is going to show the trough in the east and the ridge back in the west, and it's gonna be right. But I just wake me up when that happens.
Well, just don't look beyond, let's say, 6 or 7 or 8 days, Joe. 15. Well, I remember, you know, you used to refer to the maps that show 14, 15 days out as the science fiction frogs.
Yes, exactly. Um, and that they are. By the way, I do have. Hang on. Mr. Briller has sent a link for those of you who want to look at the whole idea of the snowiest states. Where's my message box? There we go. I'll copy the link and I'll put it up here. And I'm going to open it up so we can talk about it because there really isn't much else to talk about. I wish there was something that I could point to that would at least give me a clue that um, that the pattern's going to change. It's just not there. That's the sad
I would
part of all of this.
I would assume then that the NAO is still positive, the PNA is still negative,
And the EPO is
we're
still
negative.
positive, and they're all showing an array of off the wall readings. So hang on, Joe. I'm trying to get you back on full screen. There you go. So let me get rid of this. The website, which I'm going to put the link up on the chat board for those of you who would like to take a look at it, is coming up right now. And okay, so Wait, this is from. Hang on, I'm gonna let me put the link up a second time. This is a better link. There you go. All right. So, according to the National Climatic Data Center, what state gets the most snow? And this is on a website called toolboss.com. Syracuse in New York receives the most snowfall on an average annual basis, 123.8 inches. That's their normal.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd hate to know what
Wait, no.
abnormal.
I'm sorry. Let me back. It says Syracuse in New York receives the most snowfall on an average annually. The average snowfall recorded in New York State is 123.8 inches a year. Okay. And the other states that follow in terms of the highest average snowfall are Wyoming, Vermont, West Virginia, and Alaska. So Alaska actually falls behind. Those four states record an average of 60 to 70 inches per year. So that's got to have to do with, you know what, Joe? It's all those states have mountains. So though that probably skews the numbers a lot because on the least side of the mountains, depending on which way things are coming, but in the west they're coming from the west. The least side of the mountains are going to be bone dry with snow, right? Unless there's upslope.
The snow shadow, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, there's various snow shadows in these states, and on the other side, you do get the snow. So maybe the snow shadows cut the numbers down. And of course, in Alaska, when you go up north, they don't get a lot of moisture there because everything's frozen. So there is,
Right.
they don't really get a lot of snow up toward the north slope, for example. New York, on average, gets 66 days of snowfall each year. Wyoming and Vermont, 54. Alaska, 48. On the other end of the spectrum, the least snowfall states are Florida, Louisiana, Hawaii. These states receive less than 1 inch of snow. Last year, Hawaii received no snowfall at all during the year. And but here's a question I have with this. Does that count any snow that falls up on the Big Island at the top of,
Right. Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa.
yeah, because they get blizzard warnings put up there from time to time.
Absolutely. They have a major observatory on Mauna Kea, and we're talking about altitudes of 13 and 14,000 feet. So I am sure that they do see snow uh, most every year at that altitude. Whenever they have any kind of a disturbance moving through during the winter months, at that altitude, you will get snow. I don't know how
Right.
much, but you will get snow.
By
And
the
you're
way,
right, they have had blizzard warnings up
yeah.
there.
By the way, finishing off that top 10 list, so you have New York, Wyoming, Vermont, Alaska, West Virginia. The next five are uh, Maine, New. Oh, I see what they did here. Okay, so here. All right, this is why. So it looks like what they did is they went to each state. They found the spot that gets the highest average snowfall per year, and based
Okay.
on that one spot, they ranked the state. So it's really kind of a deceptive. I don't know if deceptive is the right word, but it's not a true. That's why I was asking the question before at the beginning about whether how did they come up with this number. So Syracuse is one based. So New York is one based on Syracuse's 123.8. So in Wyoming they used Lander, Vermont used Burlington, Alaska used Anchorage, but if you used Fairbanks, your numbers would be lower. So they went with the highest one in each city. Beckley, West Virginia, 62. Portland, 61. Concord, New Hampshire, 60. Salt Lake City, Utah, 56. Minneapolis, 54. And North Dakota, Bismarck at 51. And just in case you want to know, New Jersey ranked at 30. Okay, 30.
Hmm.
And
At 1 and 30 next door.
yeah. And where's Connecticut? Connecticut is 15. And at the bottom of the list, you got Louisiana, Hawaii, Florida, California, believe it or not, because they use San Diego, and San Diego gets no snow. See, this is wrong to me. I think the idea of picking one spot and making that the central location the representative of the entire state just makes no sense. Okay, why would you use Tucson? Why wouldn't you use Flagstaff? Tucson's average is 0.3. Flagstaff's in double digits somewhere in terms of snowfall, and pretty high double digits at that. So I would like to, we're going to have to call this into question. I
Why
protest.
don't you call up the National Climactic Center and argue with them about
Yeah,
their scoring?
but they're only using that they're only basing it with the one city that they're putting as an example, and that's just not. I don't think that's a fair way of looking at which states produce the most snow and which states don't. Of
Well, you
course,
see, you're talking about cities now. I'm sure if you use the top of Mount Rainier in out west, the Pacific Northwest, they would have come in first, as opposed to a
yeah,
city, Syracuse. All right.
exactly, exactly. That's why I'm not crazy about this the way this thing was put together. Anyway,
Obviously,
we're allowed to disagree. I mean, you and I aren't disagreeing. I'm just saying we're allowed to have our never to be humble opinions about things.
it's obviously the numerical way of scoring was put together by the same person who managed to put together the Iowa caucuses. But
I was waiting for you to get political on this. Of course, you know what? If we elect a socialist for president, we can demand that they redistribute the snow evenly across the country.
exactly, exactly.
So they'd have to get like these gigantic, shovels and snow removal equipment and move that snow because darn it, we should have snow. We should make the
Everywhere.
whole country a white, have it be a white Christmas by redistributing the snow to all 50 states, even if you have to fly the snow to Hawaii.
I'm sure they would love. I'm sure they would love that in Waikiki.
I'm sure they would. So anyhow,
or, or Honolulu.
Honolulu, a land of Goshen. So I mean, folks, look, this pretty much wraps it up tonight. I mean, there really just isn't much going on. When do the Mets? When do the Yankees and Mets with spring training? When does all that get underway, Mr. Rayo?
Pitchers and catchers were yesterday for the Mets. I think today for the Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess they're going to have their first exhibition game at the end of the month. Back in the day, they used to wait until like the first week of March before they started having exhibition games. But now the season begins at the end of March. So I assume before this month is over, maybe in the next couple of weeks, we'll start having the first games, exhibition games or split squad games. I don't know, but we'll see.
We'll see. Oh, my buddy Phil Bazanka's on. There
Oh,
he
by the
is.
way, Mr. Briller had me on my you. I'm not. I don't remember if it was on YouTube or maybe it was on my Facebook earlier today. He had me do my snow dance. He said he wanted me to see me do a snow dance, and I actually danced for him. It was kind of tough because we don't really have all that larger screen and
Okay.
larger way to do it, but he wanted to know if we were going to do a snow dance together
Well,
on.
that I ain't doing. It's just not happening.
Sorry, Scott.
Just not happening. Not doing it. So, all right. You know what? Let's call it a night. It's some nights we can go over an hour, and some nights it's a
But
struggle, and tonight's a struggle.
but but Mr. Cioffi, it's so fun.
Oh, good
And you
God!
would and you at your age should be
You're
ashamed.
ashamed of yourself, Mrs. Manicotti.
Yes.
Oh God. So
Well,
don't forget, Joe, tomorrow night on the Flintstones on MeTV, it's the episode where they reminisce back about how Fred and Wilma met.
right. She was a cigarette girl. He was a bellhop.
And
Actually,
they,
Barney was a bellhop too, I think.
so I guess they get into how Barney and Betty met too on that one.
Exactly.
And I have 2 recorded Perry Mason episodes to look at. I did happen to see one last night that I found on one of the video sites where Raymond Burr was out for 4 episodes because of some back surgery he had to have. So
And Betty Davis was one of the
well,
stand-in.
right. I actually have not found the full episode with Betty Davis. It's the case of Constant Doyle. But I did find one with Michael Rennie, If you remember the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still,
Right.
that was Michael Rennie in that movie, who came from the other planet, and it's a very good movie. If you have heard, it was a sci-fi movie that had a very interesting message to it. And Billy Gray from Father Knows Best played Patricia Neal's son in that, which was
I didn't know
yes. Anyhow, Michael Rene was a law professor who winds up having to. He has some disdain for trial lawyers, and then it turns out that one of his students gets involved in a murder, and he has to defend her in court. And of course, he wins the case. And then they talk to Perry at the end, where Raymond Burr is lying in bed, with a sheet over him, and he's like, "I'm sick, I'm sick." Um,
that.
so he was one. Betty Davis was another. I don't know who the other two were. So I have to just. And then today, the one episode from the case of the sympathetic Simon. What was it called? Was one of at least two Perry Mason episodes that I know of that has Victor Buono in it. Victor Buono is well known as playing King Tut on Batman.
Right.
And he was guilty of the murder in the episode of this one that I saw, and I believe that also in the other Perry Mason episode he plays the guilty party. So they were good episodes. Very interesting how 9 seasons. To keep a show original for 9 seasons is pretty difficult.
It is. It is. But I think the funniest commercial that they use on MeTV to promote Perry Mason is when they use the segment from the Flintstones where Barney is attempting to adopt Bam Bam. Some rich guy wants Bam Bam
Yes, I remember. Yeah,
and hires Perry Masonry.
Perry Masonry. Yes.
And you see in the commercial, the lawyer that the Rebels are working with said, "Oh no, we're going to lose." How do you know that? Because they have Perry Masonry. And at that point, they bring up Raymond Burr on a split screen with Barney, and then in the same font that you see on Perry Mason, that special
Right.
type of lettering or whatever. They said in the same font, Perry Masonry. You watch Perry Masonry weekdays at 9 and at 11:30 at night.
I also have one. I don't know if you've probably seen it too, where they have Carol Burnett in the stand.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and Raymond Burr, like they took some clips that they found or were able to manufacture digitally. So that's kind of cute too. But anyway, blast from the past, as it usually is. Okay, I got a message here from Timothy Veltman who says STIAN wants to talk about the big storm heading for Europe. Okay, we could do that just really quick. And by the way, Joe, on the long range, I didn't look specifically today, but these lows in the Atlantic are going to get down to well, we saw that yesterday, the two almost Category 4 and Category 5 hurricanes. But there actually is one. I did notice on the European here. Hang on on the GFS and the European as well. Let me get the map of Europe up. So a lot of Europe. What's that?
They have names for Europe, right? I mean, in Europe, they're naming these storms.
The UK does. The UK does. I think the one that they just had was Clara. I don't know what the name of this one's going to be, but for those of you who don't know, I mean, much of Europe and Western Russia and Siberia have not gotten much snow this year. So they're kind of in the same snow drought that we're in, and it's all because of that polar vortex being wrapped up. There's been this almost constant low pressure to the northwest. To the northeast of the Nordic countries. So you got this almost semi-permanent westerly flow, and of course we've been talking about the fire hose that's been out in the Atlantic. The low, and I'll bring up. Where did it go? I lost my map. Hang on, Joe. Just lost the map here for a second.
I'm looking myself on Tropical Tidbits. This is the 18Z run. They got one strong low, like a 982 moving over Ireland by late
Yeah,
tonight.
I
Then
got it
you've
on the
got
screen, and then that goes in, and then there's another power. You can see on the upper left. I don't know if you guys you can pick it out there on the upper left there. That's a 9:36 low, Friday
right.
morning, right near or just to the east of Iceland, or I'm sorry, to the south of Iceland. That kind of goes northwest, and then there's a 9:18 low that's south of Iceland on Saturday. They're going to get absolutely mauled, I would think, with heavy snow and God knows what else with respect to the wind. I mean, Jesus, the gradient is so darn tight. Look at that.
Incredible.
You want to get on a plane to Reykjavik?
One of our friends just came. Well, a friend of mine. I don't know how well you know him, Mike Rizzo,
I know who Mike Rizzo is.
over in News 12 land, and he spent about a week in Reykjavik and was amazed by the. I think he got a chance to see the aurora, the
Oh,
northern lights.
nice.
So,
By the way, at 90 hours, which is Sunday morning, there's a 9:31 low south of Iceland and heading right for the British Isles. It does fill to a 9:53 by the time it gets over Scotland. But I mean, this is a pretty serious storm here. If this verifies for England and for Ireland, not just from the standpoint of precip. I mean, because there's some snow here that eventually just goes over to rain, but the gradient is so tight, the winds are going to be pretty strong. I think they're going to put their yellow. I don't know. Maybe they might go with that yellow flag warning that they have. Just looking at the sounding, southwest at sustained 30 to 40. So usually gusts will be probably closer to 50 or 60 knots. Wouldn't be a
we had,
shocker.
I mean, it was not 950, 953, but I mean, look what we had on Friday.
We had a
We had a
70,
970.
72. But this is
Yeah.
some powerhouse coming in off the Atlantic, and I'll bring up the Atlantic view. And I mean, usually we don't pull up this view until we get to the hurricane season. But you can see again, it's this fire hose in the Atlantic. You actually have, there's a train of lows here. You have a 978 low that's approaching the British Isles now. There's a 61 low east of Newfoundland. So that was one of the waves of the last couple of days. And now you got this new one that's coming out. And that one eventually, this low that's coming off for us here, eventually becomes the 916 low out near Iceland, and then eventually just kind of does a counterclockwise loop, gets down to 914 on the GFS, and then finds its way. Yeah, I mean, this is crazy stuff here. This is a pretty wicked storm that's headed up for England and for Ireland. So pass the word along to those of you who might be watching from there that will pay attention to this, because things around the States are going to get pretty quiet over the next few days, so we might as well look at the weather that's going on over on the other side.
On the other side of the big pond.
Correct. All right, so thanks everybody for being here tonight. So we went from 30 minutes and we finished off with 45. And Tim, thanks for that. At least we got to take a look at some interesting weather going on out in the far eastern Atlantic. Scott Briller, thank you for hitting Super Chat. The Climactic Center is now banned from Briller Jeopardy, as he says. Tim says those little islands north of the UK are the Faroe Islands. I follow a streamer on Twitch who's occasionally from the Faroe Islands. I think I did see a National Geographic show on the Faroe Islands. I got to go back and look at it again.
I flew over the Faroe Islands back in 2016 to catch a total eclipse of the sun. We were over the Faroe Islands, and that's up there like that's right at the outer edge of the Arctic Circle, like
Oh, nice.
Like 64, 65 degrees north latitude. So
I think the Faroe Islands, they have a very small population there. It's like 500 people, I think, live on the island.
Yeah, well, the Faroe Islands, and not too far away is Svalbard, which
Mhm.
is which is also I think it belongs to Norway. Yeah, and of course at the very tippy top in Scotland are a sprinkling of islands known as the New Hebrides Islands.
Yes.
And that looks like where that storm is headed right for, the one that we were talking about just a few minutes ago.
Ruth,
The Islands. Yeah.
yes, we should
Lovely.
men. We would. This is stay on Turstad, who was on yesterday, and this is Storm Dennis.
Okay.
That's a good name. See, we can either go Dennis the Menace with this or Monty Python, whichever way you'd like.
Yeah.
But he says Storm Dennis approaching Europe, leaving the U.S. That is the system that's coming off and going through here for tonight and tomorrow. That's your Storm Dennis that's going to be along about Saturday night into Sunday. So we'll talk about that more tomorrow. As that looks pretty interesting. I'm going to be uh, I'm going to be fascinated to see what the actual weather turns out. He said, "Yeah."
Stan, Stan says 50,000 people live on the Faroes.
Okay, so I'm thinking of another group of islands. Then my apologies. I stand corrected. Storm is heading directly towards Shetland and the Faroe Islands. Yes. Okay, so we're gonna be on top of this tomorrow for sure. And in the meantime, you have a nice night, Mr. Rayo. Everybody on the board tonight, thanks for being here, and we will see you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Nighty night.